Hello, everybody. Welcome to Galactic Wisdom. So as you can see, I'm actually back in my home. I have been traveling around Arizona, Sedona specifically, for a couple of weeks, researching orbs and aliens and UFOs in the Sedona area. And now I'm back. And today I'm going to talk about time travel. And I'm actually consider myself to be relatively well qualified to talk about time travel because I have a first-class honors degree in physics with space science and technology. I used to do X-ray astrophysics research utilizing space-based X-ray telescopes. So I've got a bit of a science background. I actually went to university and learned about relativity and quantum mechanics and things like that. So I'm going to give you my take on time travel. And those of you that will know me also know that I know a lot about the paranormal, about UFOs and aliens. And I'm going to be able to talk about time traveling UFOs, time traveling aliens, and all of the implications of that. But first, I'm going to give maybe a 2 or 3 minute summary of my time researching the weird stuff that goes on in Sedona, in Arizona. So when I first went to Bradshaw Ranch, which is a location in Sedona where it's like a hot spot of paranormal activity, a couple of months ago, as I'm sure people watching this show will already know, I did encounter this orb there, this hovering blue orb. It was clearly conscious. It was clearly responding to me, and I did video it. So watch past shows to see the video of this orb that I interacted with. What was that orb? I don't really know. The psychics that I've talked to who have connected with that hovering blue paranormal orb have told me that the energy is not terrestrial. They feel that it's extraterrestrial. They feel like it's truly alien. And but that's as far as I know. I went back to that same location a couple of weeks ago, and again, when I was there, as happened the first time, I was feeling the presence of alien entities. When alien entities come in close to me, I get high-pitched ringing in my ears, high tones, and I only get that when I'm involved in alien stuff. So, and I also get changes in air pressure, and I get electrostatic weird things going on, like muscle spasms and things, among other things like electronic equipment are going weird. But I know when alien presences come in. So I was experiencing that all around Bradshaw Ranch when I was there. Now, when I went up to Bradshaw Ranch, I was cautious because there is supposedly a underground secret military base there. And I don't know if there is. I know a lot of people who are convinced that there is. What I do know is that when I went there on all occasions, I've been there 6 or 7 times now, every single time I go there, there are weird lights in the sky. And they're a mixture of military craft that are flashing and strobing in the sky. And there are also craft in the same area that are not flashing, that are not strobing, that appear not to follow the rules of humankind when it comes to how we light up our aerial vehicles. Now, these aerial vehicles are taking off to the north of Sedona, to the north of Bradshaw Ranch, over the secret mountain area. They're taking off, they're accelerating up into the sky. And there's, at any one time, there's always 3 or 4 moving up into the sky. There are hundreds that are going up into the sky every night. And a lot of them are just continuous lights without that flashing. So that's odd. But what I can't say is that they're performing weird maneuvers, like unearthly maneuvers. They're not zigzagging around as far as I could tell. It's just a steady flight up into the sky. So I suspect that there's a lot of military activity there, maybe reverse engineered technology. When I got to Bradshaw Ranch a couple of weeks ago, the first night I was there, it was 10 o'clock. This is a very deserted, sort of foresty area. There's There's no developments there, very, very few homes or ranches. And I was hearing muffled gunfire. It wasn't just one or two shots like a hunter. This was like target practice. And it sounded like, and I'm not an expert on what things sound like when they're coming from underground bunkers, but it sounded like it was a lot of gunfire coming from underneath the ground beneath the area of Bradshaw Ranch. So I don't know. Maybe there's military stuff going on there. I don't know. But I decided on every occasion when I went to Bradshaw Ranch that I would sit down or kneel down as I was approaching and meditate and reach out psychically to the area and let it be known to any alien entities, to any spirits, to any cryptids that I was there and that I was approaching and that I was coming in peace and I was coming in friendship. And so I didn't encounter any major problems when I was there. Thankfully, it felt like they knew that I was coming because I told them. When I got to the ranch itself, I would sit down, I would kneel down, and I would meditate, and I would reach out to any beings that were there. I would invite orbs to come in, Bigfoot, aliens, whatever is there, I would invite it to come in. And the first time I did that, this last time I went back there was an enormous clank on the big metal gate right in front of me, as though somebody just like smashed it with a metal hammer. And I opened my eyes suddenly and nobody was there. I actually haven't looked at the video of that yet. That was being videoed, so I need to check that to see if there's anything discernible in the video. Maybe an orb will swing past, or a UFO or an alien or something and bang on it. I don't know. I did go further into the ranch, and there are old abandoned derelict buildings on the ranch. And I was doing most of this around midnight to 2 a.m. in the morning by myself. So it was kind of spooky. It's probably one of the spookiest places I've ever been to in my life. I did meditations there, and I actually met up with 3 or 4 people one night, and we did a contact meditation right next to those buildings. We reached out to any entities that were there. And when I did that meditation, there were bangs and knocks and creaks coming from inside those buildings. They weren't there before the meditation, they weren't there after the meditation, but during the meditation, when I was reaching out to different beings, there was a lot of banging going on inside those old abandoned buildings. What was causing the banging? I don't think it would have been aliens. That's not really their style to go around banging, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if there were human spirits in those old abandoned derelict buildings responding to me. So there was a lot of banging, a lot of weird noises. There is a tall tower with a wind turbine spinning on it. It's actually for a water pump that is on the ranch. And I was there one night and there was absolutely no wind and it was not spinning at all. And I walked up to this tower with the wind turbine on top of it. And I just videoed it up and down. And then I walked away from it and I spun around when I heard this creaking sound coming from behind me, and the wind turbine was then spinning really, really, really fast. And the air was completely still. So that was very odd. Now, is it possible that there was wind up there, maybe 30 feet up into the air? Yeah, it's possible, but enough to cause that amount of wind, I suspect I would have felt something on the ground too. It would have had to be a very steep gradient of lots of wind to no wind in order for that to happen. And I've got that on video too, so I will share that with you sometime. Now, there was a researcher there who was researching Bigfoot, and one of the things that he did when he was there previously a few weeks ago, he felt that a Bigfoot had thrown stones at him and a group of paranormal investigators, quite large rocks actually. And so when I was there with him, he started throwing stones into the forest. Not something that I was participating in myself. I'm far more into going into the forest and trying to hug whatever is there. But when I was there and he was there, I did turn around suddenly when there was a thud a few yards from me on the ground, and a big rock hit the ground close to me. So if that had have hit me, I mean, that could have killed me. It was big. So, you shouldn't be going into these areas unless you're prepared for some level of danger, some level of risk. I recommend not throwing rocks. I was there for 6 or 7 other nights other than that, and there was no other throwing of rocks. So maybe that will give us some important information. You go in there peacefully and you'll be treated peacefully. It's like Luke going into the cave, in Empire Strikes Back. If you take your weapons with you, then expect to find conflict and battle in there. But if you don't, expect to find peace. So I witnessed quite a lot of interesting things in the Bradshaw Ranch area, but I did not have another in-person encounter with the orb. But I am going to go back in maybe about 2, maybe 3 weeks. Next weekend, I am going to go to Las Vegas. And Las Vegas, I'm in the Las Vegas area. I'm going to host a couple of in-person events, and you can come along to them if you want to. In Las Vegas, I'm going to, on Friday, the 1st of August, go to the Desert National Wildlife Refuge. Now, it'll be closed in the evening, but you can drive down sort of an entrance road. And if you want to, come and meet me at 7 o'clock at that entrance gate. There's a little place we can pull up our cars, and there'll probably be a small group of people there. And we're going to reach out to our tall white friends who live in that area and see if they can come to us. The last time I was there and I was talking to the group of people, behind me in the air appeared out of nowhere a bright light that seemed to be expanding and getting larger and larger, whether it was an opening or a craft materializing isn't quite clear, but I heard the gasps of the people who were watching me, seeing it behind me. I spun around and I saw it also, this large bright light that grew to be quite large in the sky and was there for 2 or 3 seconds before it shrank back down and disappeared into nothing. That was cool. So if you want to, come and join me on Friday the 1st. Now, on Saturday the 2nd of August, I'm going to go as close to Area 51 as is legal. There is a mountain that it's a good distance away. It's probably something like 20 miles away, but it's a mountain, it's high, and it's on public land, and you are allowed to climb this mountain and to look across, and you can actually look across all the way to Area 51. So I am going to do that on Saturday, August the 2nd. If you want to join me, join my Patreon group, patreon.com/alien contact, and you will be able to see all of the information for all of these events that I'm talking about. Excuse me a second. The weekend after that, maybe 2 weekends after that, I haven't figured out the dates, I'm going back to Arizona, back to Bradshaw Ranch. You can join me for a contact adventure there if you want to. And maybe a week or 2 after that, I'm probably going to continue up to Utah to Skinwalker Ranch. Now, you can't go on to Skinwalker Ranch, but you can get very close to it. And I've done that a few times and seen a few interesting things about Skinwalker Ranch. So that's my plan for the next few weeks. On Saturday, if anybody's interested, I am hosting an online event, which is very easy. It's a free online event that people can attend, and it is a universal peace. I'm going to rephrase that. It's a world peace manifestation and meditation. What this world could do with right now is for a bit of peace, a little less violence, a little less war, a little less attacking, a little bit more peace. And basically, we're just going to meditate. We're going to tune into our unconditional love. We're going to tune into our desire for peace, and we're going to manifest using our psychic abilities. We're going to utilize manifestation in order to increase the peace in the world. If any of you would like to join me in trying to make this world a more peaceful place, on this coming Saturday, it's going to be 5 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Mountain time, 7 p.m. Central time, 8 p.m. Eastern time for the World Peace Manifestation. Then the details are going to be available in just a few hours at patreon.com/alien contact. So that's what I'm going to be doing in the next few weeks. Now let's look at time. Let's look at time travel. A lot of people, when I start talking about time and time travel, they say to me things like, time is meaningless. Time isn't even real. Time is something that human beings made and they constructed. And it's always a little bit disappointing when people say things like that with the conviction of knowledge that they don't have, when they don't have that knowledge. They hear other people saying it. I'm sure people weren't saying that a few hundred years ago, but they hear people saying it now in today's world, and then they get a kick out of thinking that they have knowledge, wisdom that they're imparting on others by saying time is meaningless. Time doesn't actually exist. So this conversation you're having about time, it's also meaningless, and I'm superior in my knowledge to you. And it's like, come on, you don't know what you're talking about. Why do people say time is meaningless? Well, most of the time they just say it because they say it, because they believe it, because they've heard people say it. It's like copy and paste thinking. But sometimes people think that, well, if we can move through time, like if time travel is possible, or if time travel of information is possible, like in premonitions, if time travel of consciousness is possible, like in astral projection, or if physical time travel is possible, like aliens traveling around through time, if any of those time travel things are possible, then clearly time isn't a thing. Well, that's a reasonable argument, but it's not logical. It's not correct. It's not a correct deduction. It's not a logical deduction. Logical deductions are things that have to be true, that are true, that can't not be true. And a speculation that is reasonable isn't necessarily logical. And it's not logical when people say that. Take, for example, the analogy of distance. Well, I can travel distances. Okay, I can travel from here to LA, or I can travel from LA to England if I want to. The fact that I can travel through the fact that I can travel through distances doesn't mean that distance isn't real. It doesn't mean it's nothing. It simply means that I'm in control of it a bit more. I can travel distance when I want to. I can traverse distance. That is that's a good analogy for time and time travel. If we can time travel, if time is more malleable, if we have more control over time, if time doesn't control us in the same way, if time doesn't control us so that we're stuck in one location, that doesn't mean that time is meaningless. It means that we can traverse it. It means we can move from one point to another point. Distance matters because, well, if you're going to drive for 3 minutes, 3 or 4 miles down the road to a local store to get supplies, that's a whole different kind of journey than if you are going to travel to Copenhagen. Okay? Distance matters. And so does time. Time matters. That's why this podcast is scheduled to occur at a certain time every week. so that people know when it's happening. I'm watching the time tick away on how long I'm talking for, so that precisely 53 minutes into this podcast, I can end the podcast and people can go and do other things. That 53 minutes, that's a time, and that time matters. It means something. When we measure speed, the distance you travel in a certain amount of time, speed is directly dependent on the time it takes you to travel a certain distance. Distance is speed times time. Speed is distance divided by time. You know, you've got these scientific equations where time matters. Time matters, speed matters. If you hit a tree when you're traveling at half a mile per hour in your car, it doesn't really matter. If you hit a tree in your car when you're traveling 100 miles per hour, that matters. So if speed matters, time matters. Okay. So is time constant? Is our progression through time constant? The answer to that is no. For us, we experience time in a constant fashion. If we have a stopwatch and we push start and we count 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second, it will seem like the same rhythm, the same tempo, whatever we're doing, whether we're flying around in a plane or a spacecraft, whether we're going close to a black hole, whether the gravity is small or big. To us, the time will be ticking along at what seems to us to be the same rate. But if you are in a different inertial frame of reference, then time is traveling at a different rate from you. So, for example, if you're traveling very fast, like close to relativistic speeds, like close to the speed of light, c, which is 300 million meters per second approximately, if you're traveling in that sort of speed range, then time is going to slow down in your inertial frame of reference. Now you, there with your stopwatch, you're going to still be counting 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, and it's going to seem like time hasn't changed. But if somebody outside who has watched your spacecraft take off from the ground and then fly around and come back, they are going to see you as, even though your spacecraft's going to be moving quite fast, they're going to see you slow down. And if you're talking, like if you're videoing yourself and sending that signal back to Earth, that signal is going to slow down 1 second, 2 seconds, and slower and slower and slower until you basically appear to stop when you get just about to the speed of light. That effect is what relativity is all about. Relativity. Time is relative to your inertial frame of reference. Now, if you're flying fast around in your spacecraft, when, let's say, you time 2 years of traveling around in your spacecraft close to the speed of light, and then you come back to the planet, well, during that 2 years of traveling around, on Earth, where everybody was relatively still, they may well have aged 200 years, 2,000 years, depending on how fast you were traveling. So time is dependent on your speed. Time is also dependent on the gravitational field that you're in. So we call the slowing down of time dilation, and you have that time dilation occur when you fly around really fast in a spacecraft. You also have time dilation occur if you go closer to a larger gravitational, if you go into a larger gravitational field. There's a great movie called Interstellar, which I recommend watching. And in the movie Interstellar, their spacecraft, they go down, they go into an area that has extremely high gravity because there's a black hole in the area. And they go down to a planet. And while they're down on the planet, having not a very nice time trying to get themselves killed, they're maybe down there, I don't know, 20 minutes or something. When they get back to the spacecraft, the guy that they left behind on the spacecraft, he's like 20, 30, 40 years older. And he's been waiting all this time for them in a lower gravitational field strength. Now, this gravitational time dilation and the relativistic speed time dilation, these are things that science has worked out, Einstein worked out in math with great precision. And since he worked that out, we have been able to do multiple real life tests to see if his mathematics works. And it does. When you take a stopwatch onto a spacecraft and fly it around the planet a few times at thousands of times faster than typical human beings travel, and you bring that stopwatch back to the planet Earth, then it has gone through less time than the stopwatches that were left behind on the Earth. Time is experienced less if you're a pilot that's flying around at great speeds all the time, or an astronaut that's whizzing around the Earth in orbit. You experience less time up there. And this has been confirmed scientifically. Practical experiments measured. Time is malleable. That is true. One weird and interesting fact is that, this Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, and we've got a lot of proof for that. 4.5 billion years old, and the planet was pretty much formed all at the same time. But the center of the planet Earth, being at the center of mass of the planet, has a higher gravitational field strength. The gravitational field is more the closer into the middle you get. There's a greater gravitational field strength in the middle than there is around the outside. That means that the middle, the core, the inner core of the planet, is actually about 2.5 years younger than the outer edge of the planet due to gravitational time dilation effects. A little bit of a bizarre fact there. If you were a tall person, your feet would be younger than your head. How about that? In fact, it doesn't matter. If you spend more time on standing up than you do lying down, then that doesn't even matter, because let's see. How about this? Sorry, I'm thinking. I've just made this up, but I'm working it out as I go along. If you spend more time standing upright with your head above your feet than your feet above your head, which everybody does, then your feet are younger than your head. So unless you walk around on your hands all the time, your feet are actually younger than your head. Now, it might only be a very small fraction of a second, but it is true. That's weird. I hadn't thought about that before. Anyway, let's keep talking about time. A lot of people will say time is the fourth dimension. And when I start talking about multiple dimensions of space, then people often say, but isn't time the fourth dimension? Well, that's a very misleading statement. Let me try and explain why that misconception is there. If we are to define exactly where anything is at all on this planet at any time, we can specify its coordinates. And we could do that, for example, by specifying its x coordinate, its y coordinate, and its z or z coordinate, x, y, z. That would be a way to specify where an object is in a certain volume. Or you could use latitude and longitude. But you've got your x, y, and z, your three different dimensions. If you want to go a step further to say exactly where and when an object is, then you put in the fourth dimension of time. So you say, this tennis ball is at this value of X, this value of Y, this value of Z, at this value of time. Then you can pinpoint the exact location of that tennis ball in space-time. In that respect, then time is it's not the fourth dimension. It's the fourth coordinate in a coordinate system. So to use the word dimension for time, it doesn't really work. X, Y, and Z, Z is English, I'm just going to stick with English. X, Y, and Z, that specifies spatial dimensions, forwards and back, left and right, up and down. Those are spatial dimensions. Time is a temporal dimension. The word temporal doesn't mean temporary. The word temporal means to do with time. So time is a temporal dimension. It's its own dimension. And it's a different quantity than distance. Spatial dimensions are measuring distances in centimeters or millimeters, kilometers. Time is a different quantity. It's measuring something in seconds, assuming we've gone metric. So it's not really accurate to say that time is the fourth dimension of anything. It's not the fourth dimension of anything. It's the first dimension of time. Now I'm going to go on to explain to you that there are very probably more than 3 dimensions of space, and there's very probably more than 1 dimension of time. So let's talk about that. Modern scientists, we understand, good scientists understand, not political scientists, not scientists that are trying to sell you something, but actual physicists understand that there's a lot about the universe that we don't yet understand. Good scientists get that. Good scientists know that there's this dark matter thing. We don't know what it is. Things in this universe, matter in this universe is being pulled around by forces that are apparently coming from, well, we don't know where they're coming from. So we invent the word or the term dark matter. And we say dark matter is what's pulling the matter around in this universe, but we don't know what it is. We haven't found dark matter yet. I suspect that it's matter that's in an extra dimensional space, but that science hasn't got that far yet. We also don't know what dark energy is that's causing the universe to accelerate off more rapidly than we would expect it to after it came out of the Big Bang. Dark energy is something we don't understand. I suspect that it's probably caused by something going on in extra-dimensional or ultra-dimensional space also. We also have this problem in the universe called the asymmetry of matter and antimatter. When the Big Bang happened at the start of the universe, what should have happened is an equal amount of matter and antimatter should have come out of it. But when we look at the universe today, rather inconveniently, it's mostly made out of matter. Sure, there's a bit of antimatter out there, but not nearly enough to fit in with our models of how the universe started. Where's that missing antimatter? We don't know. I suspect that it's probably in ultra-dimensional space somewhere, but science hasn't got that far yet. In any case, good scientists know that we don't know all of these things. And because good scientists don't know the answer to these questions, they're trying to come up with theories to figure out the answers to these questions. And leading scientific theories have been formulated, postulated, theorized, just theories, that we can answer some of these big questions if we invoke into our picture of the universe multiple dimensions of extra dimensional space that's beyond our 3 dimensions of space, and actually quite serious, good, leading theories that try to come up with the big picture, the grand unified theories of everything in the universe, they have up to 10 different spatial dimensions within the mathematics. And in fact, in places like the CERN particle accelerator, in particle accelerators around the world, which are doing good science, they're not trying to summon demons, as some people believe, but they're doing good science. Remember, I used to be a scientist, so I would go to places like this and do science there. What they're trying to do is when they collide beams of protons and things and smash them into each other, they're looking at the debris that comes out of these particle collisions. They're analyzing them. They're plotting the paths of these subatomic particles that smash out from these collisions of protons and neutrons and things. And they're watching to see, do any of them just disappear? Because if they disappear, maybe they just disappeared into ultra-dimensional spaces, the fourth dimension of space, for example. They're also looking to see if anything just reappears out of these higher dimensions of space. These are real science experiments that are going on. Now, as a paranormal investigator, I've pretty much figured out that what we could call higher dimensions of space do exist. It explains so much in our paranormal realities. It explains where spirits are, the spirits of us when we die. It explains where our spirits presently extend into. It explains how we can astrally project our consciousness to other times and places, and we can actually go into higher dimensions of space astrally and take a look and see what's there. We can go in and out of them and remote view them. There's a lot of paranormal things going on, like UFOs sort of disappearing out of reality. Sometimes they fly off really fast, but a lot of times they just sort of blink out, as though they just sort of disappeared into something that we can't see, or out of where we are into something beyond. Higher dimensions of space. Time. There's a second dimension of time, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. I'm going to have to work through some more things first. First of all, can we travel through time? When I say can we travel through time, there's three different ways that something can travel through time, three different things that can travel through time. The time travel of information, like in a radio broadcast, or to the time travel of telepathic information. Well, we know that can happen when people have premonitions. I know people who have premonitions, and those premonitions come true. That's a fact. That's a fact that I've been able to prove to myself. If you have a premonition, either a waking premonition or a premonition when you're meditating, or a premonitory dream when you're asleep and you have a dream and then that dream comes true. If any of those premonitions come true, that's time travel. That's time travel of information. The second thing that can travel through time is consciousness. Can we travel through time? Well, yeah, I do it all the time. In a lot of my events that I lead, a lot of my meditations that I lead, I astrally project people through time to a certain location, a certain time, to see what's there. Like when a UFO crashed. Like, I don't know, when giant floods happened in the past, like the formation of the planet. I can time travel us into the future, and we can communicate with beings in the future. I have time traveled into the past so many times with many different people that I have been able to prove that it absolutely is 100% true. Because we can travel to a certain place, and I can ask the people to psychically look around and see what is there at that time. And they will tell me, and I will know the location, but they won't. And when they tell me, and then I show them a photograph of, well, this is where you went to, and they suddenly realize that the penguins they were seeing at that location was because I time traveled us back to a certain time when there were penguins in a certain location when a photograph was taken. We can do things like that. And so we can prove that the time travel of consciousness is possible. Can we time travel physically? You know, I haven't reached a conclusion on that one yet. There are pieces of evidence in support of the idea that certain UFOs or aliens or extraterrestrials, or maybe they're not extraterrestrial, maybe they're time travelers. There's evidence to suppose that some of these vessels or beings have time traveled to the present from the future. What kind of information is there that leads me to that conclusion? Well, there is the Rendlesham Forest incident in England, in a place called Rendlesham Forest. And I don't remember all the dates and the details to all these things, so sorry if I'm not 100% accurate. But what happened was close to a US military base in England, in a place called Rendlesham Forest, a few decades ago, I don't know, 80s, 90s, I can't remember. But there were lights, UFOs and things that landed in the nearby forest and were coming up to the gates of the Air Force Base. And this got the attention of the US military personnel, and they went into the forest. And one of the lots of people saw these lights, these UFOs and things. And one person who reached out and touched the surface of this UFO, he felt like when he touched the surface of this UFO, he was downloaded with lots of information. He was given information to him in some kind of psychic or paranormal manner. And afterwards, he claims, now I don't know if his claims are true, but he claims that afterwards he felt compelled to, on paper, write down pages and pages and pages of zeros and ones, like a binary code. And many years later, that code was given to people to try to translate it to see if it meant anything. And one code breaker translated it to be the following. And I'm going to read out what the code was that the code breaker translated it as. Exploration of humanity 6668100. Then there's some coordinates, north and west coordinates for a map. Continuous for planetary advance, and then question mark, maybe advancement or advantage. There's some other coordinates and things. Now, apparently some of these coordinates pinpoint things like the pyramids. I don't know if that's true. I haven't done the code breaking myself, but this is what is claimed. Then it says, eyes of your eyes. Origin, then more coordinates. And then finally it says, origin year 8100. Origin year 8100. So that implies, if this is all true, that implies that maybe this craft came from 6,000 years in the future to Rendlesham Forest. Wow. That's evidence, but it's not proof. But it's very, very interesting. Now, a lot of UFOs and aliens, when they come to us, they do communicate messages about what's going to happen in the future. So whether that means they've come from the future or they've just looked into the future and see what's coming, I don't know. But I have received messages in my groups, in the meditations that I lead. I have received messages from alien beings in the future. We even know their names. We're friends with them. We have received messages about what's going to happen in the future because they care about what's going to happen in the future. And they also want us to change it. Now, these messages that people are getting from future aliens, this is actually common. It's been going on for decades. Another example of potentially evidence about time-traveling aliens is the Kingman crash. Oh my goodness, I didn't write down the date of it. I think it was 1953, but yeah, I think it was 1953. There are reports of a crash that happened outside Kingman, Arizona, and there was an alien. There were, I think, 3 aliens maybe on board. At least this is what the story. This is how the story goes. And one of those aliens was taken into the Area 51 area under the ground and held captive for a long time. It was an old alien and probably had a very long life remaining. Who knows if it's still alive? But it is claimed by a guy called Dan Burish that he used to interact with the alien a lot. The alien was called J-Rod. At least their species was called J-Rod. And he had a telepathic connection with this being, and for a long time he would have to go in and take samples, skin samples, DNA samples, blood samples from this being. And there are videos of him talking about his experiences, and he doesn't sound like somebody that's making it up. Now, that doesn't mean that he isn't making it up. He could be a very good actor. It doesn't mean he's telling the whole truth. The best lies are those lies that are surrounded by mostly truths. So it could be that there's manipulation or disinformation in a subtle way going on, but it sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And he interacted with J-Rod, who claimed to him to be from the future. I interact with beings that I call tall silvers. They are large, they're tall, they tower above me. I don't know if they're 9 foot tall, 10 foot tall, but multiple times psychics have seen these tall beings, which in color are silver gray. So I call them tall silvers, and they say they're from the future. And they're with me a lot. They're seen around me a lot. They protect me. It seems that maybe some of them who I am will be in them in the future. Like, I don't know if that means descendants or cloning or reincarnation of some manner, but it's almost like a family line from the future. I'm in contact with them, and they guide me. They help me to meet certain people and be in certain places at the right times. They protect me. They put out big psychic force fields around me that psychics can feel and know that I'm protected. So if there's all this time travel stuff going on, does that mean we can change our futures? Well, if time was one-dimensional, then the only reason why we experience the travel of time is because we're moving along the line. That is what time is to us. We're moving along at a constant time through that one-dimensional timeline. If you could stand back and look at it, that timeline would not be changing if it's one-dimensional. This is a dimension of time. And you would need to have a second dimension of time over which that first dimensional timeline would change in order to change. You need 2 dimensions of time in order for time to be changeable. I don't know if that is, I probably need diagrams and computer animations and things to explain this. But it's like Yoda said to Luke in The Empire Strikes Back, the future is in motion. Yes, you can change time. That has been demonstrated. The reason why these beings are coming back from the future to talk to us, to tell us what's in the future, is so that we can change it. And the only reason we can change it, we couldn't change a one-dimensional timeline. We have to have this dimension of time changing over a second dimension of time for the time to be changeable. So I know I only have like 2 minutes left, so I'm going to have to wrap this up fairly quickly. But the point I'm trying to make is time is two-dimensional. There is the temporal time, that's basically the year that we're in, and there is the second dimension of time called real time. Real time is where you are in time. So if you have a stopwatch and you're measuring time on your stopwatch and you jump into the future, real time will continue on your stopwatch, even though you've jumped forwards in temporal time. This all matters because we can change the future. We can make the future better. If time is interrupted, if you get information from the future, and I am giving you information from the future, I am receiving it, I'm giving it to you. That means we can change time, we can make time better. We can change the future for the better. If you would like to help me to change the future for the better, please join my group at www.patreon.com/alien-contact. That's a free membership option, but if you would like to help me further, then there are also different tiers that you can join. I would love it if you would join me for a free event on Saturday, a world peace manifestation meditation. I wish you all peace, love, and happiness. Take care. Goodbye for now.